if I was to act like you do in the morning, get ready for my day, I would have a shower, I would pick my clothes, put deodorant on and perfume on, and walk out of our bedroom and be ready. But Amy that has just had a shower and done those things, that would be frizzy hair. That would be hair in a slicked up, wet, messy bun.
Yeah.
That would be Amy that gets told she's tired all day because she doesn't have makeup on, and that's the days that people tell you you're tired because you don't have makeup on.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. It's a pain point for me. But in saying all of that, he has no idea.
Welcome back to another Honey, We Need to Chat episode.
Yes, we are a podcast all about communication. We believe that when communication dies, bad things happen. And so our heart is to chat and chat through things that you might experience in your relationship and things that we absolutely have. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. We have Bonnie with us again tonight.
You can kind of see her.
Say hi, Bonnie.
Come on. Come here. Slowly come here.
Good girl. Don't climb me. She's going to climb me.
Now.
I'm sorry. I just confused you. Go lie down. No. That's my tea.
Yeah. Oh. Mummy showed you affection for once, eh? You got confused. Yeah. That's what you say with me.
This is a Reddit story week, and we are diving into the topic of insecurities. So buckle up. But before we do that, we're going to break some ice.
Break it. We're going to do a cha-cha.
A real cha-cha. Bon.
She's going to help. All right. So the first brain buster is, how has our relationship changed you?
Oh my gosh. In so many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's changed my sense of confidence. It's changed my boundaries, my ability to put boundaries in place, my ability to try new things. I eat semi-spicy food sometimes now.
Well done. I'm so proud.
Change.
You kind of eat jalapenos now?
Kind of eat, yeah. Depends on where and when, but yes, it does happen and never happened before. So that's one big thing. What about you?
Yeah, that's a big one. I think a lot has changed. I think it's helped me to not be so self-centered. To think of someone else is always a good change. To do it in a way of teamwork, which is awesome. Like, obviously, everything that comes with knowing you two, with our kids and all that sort of stuff, that's a whole other level.
Is there something you want to say? She just has the biggest smile on her face.
Yeah.
Is there something that you want to say?
Yeah. I think, I really want to think about this. What's changed for me? I think there's a level of, like, yes, teamwork, but also reliance. Like, I'm actually relying on someone now. I think before I was quite independent. Do you guys need a moment?
Bunny, Daddy's being serious. She's put white fur all over me. Go lay down, Bun. Go lay down.
Yeah, so there's a whole other level of reliance. Like, so I'm a lot more reliant on you, which I think before I was quite independent. I feel like I'm a lot more curious now, even though I'm not as curious as you. I'm definitely a lot more curious. Yeah. I have a lot more safety, I would say. I feel a lot more secure and safe in who I am. Yeah, there's some big ones.
Yeah, I'd agree with some of those for me as well.
You're not eating that. No, you're not eating that. What do you think is the key to our lasting happiness? Communication.
Communicata. Yeah.
What is happening?
Bon, she's got to knock the mic thing out.
What is happening?
Bonnie, you got to lie down. Hello.
Stay. Well, that was nearly a hiccup.
She just knocked the mic thing out
Bonnie,
again, but this time we heard it.
Check the mic.
Hopefully we'll fix it. I do have an answer to that question, by the way, which was, what do you think is the key to our happiness?
Oh, yeah, go.
Controversial opinion, I don't actually think that happiness is something to chase. And I hear a lot of people say, like, their goal is to be happy. And I get it, because happiness is obviously a beautiful experience. But I don't think happiness is a constant. I think happiness is the same as excitement. And there's a whole bunch of more important foundational emotions that I would chase over that, like joy, which maybe some people think is like excitement too. But in my opinion, it can be like a long-lasting, consistent happiness. I think when you chase happiness, you can end up chasing things that cover up what's going on.
Yeah.
And feeling like when it's not happy, things aren't going well. So if you go through a hard thing, it's not just, oh, we're going through a hard thing together, but we're weathering it. It's like almost like you're failing because you're chasing happiness. So that's a bit of a different answer to that question, but I don't really think that happiness is something that I pursue.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know that there's any key to our, was it eternal happiness or something?
Yeah.
Lasting happiness.
Lasting happiness or something, yeah.
But communication's a good step.
Yeah, do it.
Do you have an answer?
I'm doing the same as yours. Stealing it.
Copycat from Ballarat. Cool. All right, well, let's dive right in.
Yep.
Honey, we need to chat.
So, on the topic of insecurities, and in our last full episode, actually dived a little bit into insecurities, which was not planned necessarily, but we talked a little bit about how we've navigated that / how we are navigating that because of various different things, but mostly you knowing how to help me navigate how to talk about it. I feel like I've got a bunny hair on
me navigate how you navigate, so we navigate how you
Do you
navigate.
remember that song? Wait, what is it? I see you watching me, watching you.
Yeah.
Tells how old we are.
Yep.
Anyway, so this is a deeper dive into the world of insecurities, and I would say that everybody has insecurities.
Absolutely.
And everybody would experience some form of this. So hopefully it's a helpful discussion.
Let's get it.
Okay, first story. I, 28 male, feel inferior to my girlfriend, 28 female. Not sure how to start this. I'm not sure if it's coming from a place of insecurity or something similar, but I feel like a lot of times during our relationship, I can't relate to her because we are so different. We've been together for 1.5 years. She's the one who was brought up in a, how you say, more cultured upbringing. She knows many things that I just have no idea about. Coming from a less fortunate family, I never got to experience the things growing up that she has. I feel like a majority of the time, if she brings something up that I don't know, I have to basically lie and agree, of course I know about that, lest I get weird looks from her and, how could you not know about this? It's common knowledge. This can range from some random fun facts that I guarantee no one has ever heard of to pop culture references. Sorry, I don't know celebrities. It gets tiring. It doesn't help the fact that she is more educated than I am, as she is a doctor and will be earning essentially triple my salary. It all feeds into the insecurity complex. At times I feel dumb, not understood, or simply seen as a child because she seems much further ahead as an adult than I am. I'm constantly scared that she'll just meet one as apt as her with a connection and it'll just be over. As in, why am I even putting effort into this relationship when I know it's probably doomed in the future? That doesn't help that the divorce rate in America is like 50%. We probably never had a chance. Can anyone relate to this? Advice on how to go through this would be appreciated.
I can see how those stats could actually spark insecurity in people,
100%.
But I think as well at the same time, it for me, it sparks the importance of what we're doing, right? Like it's sparking the importance of, so if you're about to get married or if you're in a new relationship or a long lasting relationship, like I think it's still so vital to have this training, have this investment into your relationship because you can't really go into it half-hearted.
Yeah.
Because it's so like literally you have 50-50 chance, you know what I mean? Yeah.
I'd love to know the actual most recent kind of stats. I don't know because people always say 50% and I don't know that that's the actual number or not. I wouldn't be surprised if it was. But also I had a moment before we got married where I was really, I don't know why. I was just all of a sudden impacted by the idea that like so many people get divorced and both of our parents' marriages had ended or were ending. And I just was like super freaked out by that. But I think something that stands out is it's not like 50% will get divorced because it's not the same as like a medical stat. That's like 40% of people will have this. It's 50% of people get divorced, but that's a situational stat that you can be a part of changing. Yeah. So it's actually, it's not something to be too scared of, but it does sound, I can totally understand how if you're already feeling insecure as well, that kind of a stat hanging over you would just be like, what's even the point? Yeah. But obviously his insecurities are the bigger thing hanging over him in this. I think this story sounds hard And I can relate in some way, like not in this exact scenario because I didn't marry someone more cultured than me. I'm just kidding.
Which time? Go.
But, you know, there's always things when you come into a relationship that your partner is going to do better than you or be more comfortable with, have been raised in. And there are so many things that I have watched either you or like people that are significant to me do with confidence that I just never had because of how my life was growing up. And everybody has that. Like everybody has a different way of growing up. So I can relate to the feeling, and I feel like it's not that uncommon, but I also don't think it's a make or break thing. I don't think either side of a relationship is ever the best. Like, it's not like he would have things that he is more confident in.
Yeah.
He would have things that he's bringing from his family upbringing that probably, if you looked at them neutrally, would look stronger or would look more encouraging or whatever it might be. And so I think it's probably a mismatch of the weight, I guess, or the value put on things. But when you are really educated or when you're interacting with really educated people, I think it's very easy to feel just confused or just overwhelmed. Like you said, he has to pretend like he knows what's going on. But I think that's the thing that stood out to me the most. That was one of the saddest parts, that he's pretending to get it.
Does it mention about how long they've been together or anything?
1.5 years.
Going back to our icebreaker question, like from the chat jar, it's like, what has changed about me or whatever else? And again, we listed some stuff, and I think it's from hearing what you were just saying then, in my head, I'm like, oh, he's focused too much on himself as an individual and not what he brings to the party, right? So again, you know, for you and I, we are complete opposites. We are so opposite in many ways. But then when we focus on who we are as an individual and the strengths that we have, because we're so opposite, man, we really work well together and we bring so much more to whatever situation we're addressing because our strengths are so different. So I think that's a big thing too, is he's focusing so much on what he is and he's not actually focusing on much of what he is and what he does bring. I do understand that. Like, you'll always tell me what words mean. Like, seriously, like I have no clue what half the words in the English vocabulary mean. I can't
Vocabulary is a word for
whatever.
I'm glad you didn't make me actually say it because I was like, Amy, make something smart.
But yeah, in this, it's too much about what she is and what he isn't. I think what we need to do to strengthen our relationship as a couple is to identify the strengths that we bring to that relationship.
Yeah. And I'd be curious to know, because sometimes you would be in this situation, they're dating and they've been together for 1.5 years. Sometimes you will be in a partnership with someone who doesn't come to the table with that. So he may be able to do that and potentially she will be like, oh, you don't know this stuff? Oh, okay. And that's on her and that's horrible if that's the case. But like, setting that aside, when you're able to communicate about what you're like worried about, like he seems so doom and gloom at the end of this. Like, what's even the point of us being together? She's going to meet someone else. He's got a lot of insecurities building on each other. It sounds to me like it's not something he's told her because he says he has to pretend that he understands what she's saying. So I feel like
in itself shows his insecurity. He doesn't feel safe that he can do that, or his insecurities are taking over. That's in that either way, that's safety, but that's either safety from her or safety from him.
Safety, yeah. And he does say that he has to pretend, or he'll get weird looks from her, or a comment like, how could you not know what that is? It's common knowledge, which that is like, that's something else to deal with if that's the case. But setting aside her character, because we just don't know what it's like, I think, coming to a place of honesty with your partner about even these insecurities and be like, I really struggle to keep up with your conversations. I don't get them. I'm not a doctor. But also, I just heard not a doctor. What is it? Fremulon, not a doctor. But also,
it's on the end of a TV show. Which TV show was it?
I don't know, but I think it's like Parks and Rec or something. Or maybe Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Anyway, she knows he's not a doctor. She knows who he is, other than the face he's putting on to understand these things that he doesn't understand. She knows him and she's dating him. So for him to think he's going to fool her into thinking he's something he's not is kind of silly, especially long term. That's not going to work long term. And she probably, if she knows who he is, she probably doesn't care about those things, and hopefully doesn't care about those things. And like you, one thing that's changed hugely in you is, like you said, your vocabulary. When we were together, you had just started kind of moving more into kind of academic-y work. And you actually went to Bible college for a time. And before you went to Bible college, you'd never written an essay. You'd hardly read books. There was a lot of words and the use of English that just was confusing to you. But you learned that, and you were super intentional. He did not let it set him like back. It was just super intentional. He like sought out a friend that was an English teacher to help. He would like talk to me about it when he was writing his essays. He talked to people around him, and you learned those things. And that's grown hugely. Even in that year, it grew hugely. And since then, it's continued to grow. So just because he doesn't know these things doesn't mean he can't.
Yeah, and I think that's quite good too, because it's also showing if he's got that desire to be able to speak at that level, like do something about it at the same time. Learn those things, show an interest in those things. Don't just shut down and let that shy you away from that. I think that's a big thing too.
I think the thing also that we just need to be aware of too is this is an episode on insecurities. As we mentioned in the Hard Conversations episode, insecurities don't necessarily receive facts very well.
Yeah.
So we've just spouted a bunch of stuff like this logic or facts, but he may not be in the place to hear those kinds of things anyway. And so one thing that we did in New Zealand, which was part of the process while we were there, was to kind of step through our story and highlight things that have stood out to us and then how they made us feel. And there's so many things that could be impacting someone with insecurities like this. But I think one thing that I would, if he wants to work on the insecurity side of it, rather than just kind of band-aiding it, is one thing I'd suggest is to just reflect on your story and look at either the things that impacted you that were kind of concerns through your life, or even the comments. One of the things they got us to do was go through our life timeline and write down criticisms that have stood out to us. And there's a few criticisms that just came from various different people that didn't mean it at all.
Yeah.
But they've stood out to me. Like a couple of them were from when I was like 12 and they still are so clear in my head. And I am almost confident that if I replayed that scene and I actually got to watch it again, I'm pretty sure those people didn't even say what I think that they said.
Yeah.
But in my head, that's what it is.
Because the way you received it or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's become, it's fed into my insecurities. And so I think recognizing where these things come from as well, because I don't think he's just feeling insecure because of who she is. I think there would be a root for that. There would be a stem for that. And I think looking into that would be really helpful.
The reason that exercise was so impactful, and it was impactfully different for both of us.
Yeah. Impacted differently.
Thank you. So for me, I had big highs and big breakthroughs on stuff. You had like this steady, like trying to understand it and figure out. You had more of a steady approach to it, or steady experience. But I think one big thing that this exercise did, so again, sitting down and dot pointing out your story, this is what we did. We dot pointed out our story. We highlighted the crises. We highlighted the criticisms. So what you do is when you identify a crisis, for example, the example that they would use would be hypothetically someone broke into your house, name the things that you lost. So that situation, someone breaking into your house, is a crisis. So now sit down and write down all the different things that you lost. Not physically, so they come in and steal your stuff. Like, we're not talking about physical things that they took, but what did you lose internally? So hypothetically, you would lose security. You would lose clarity of like, how did they get in? Like, I thought I locked everything, And so you list down all of these things. One of my crises, I had 40 of them. It was quite intense. And then what we did is we sat down to each of those words that we named that were losses, and we sat through and we had all these graphs and things that help us with that. But I think you can do that to an extent yourself without these sorts of tools, is to be thinking through. So through every loss, there's a grief process. So you would sit down and you're like, how am I feeling about this word? So if it's clarity, how am I sitting in general with the word clarity, and how do I feel in general about the word clarity? And what that did, and we won't go into too much of that because that's, we spent a week addressing these things, right? But what that did for us was removed the the size of the issue. So for this guy, for example, it's this huge issue of I'm insecure because she, speaks in a different way than me, more upper class sort of stuff, whatever. It's removing that to be more like identifying why is this a trigger for him? Why is this actually making insecurity for him? So it could be simply, actually clarity I'm feeling pretty good with, but security I don't. So it's really narrowing down. So when these triggers spike up again, I've actually got more of an understanding of what's going on, so I can be in a more sound mind to address that and put things in place to work on that. And I see that as a big part of insecurities is so disarming. Well, it's disarming to us, and so if we can disarm the situation, I feel like it just loses a lot of its power, a lot of its weight.
Yeah, and I mean, insecurities aren't based on truth. They're not a true fact that then makes you insecure. They're impacted by your situation, your experiences, but it's not a true thing that you can it's not tangible. I don't know if that makes sense. And so these things, but they become huge and they control us. And so having a little bit of clarity around them takes the power away and helps you see through them. So you can start to address and adjust your behavior and your reactions to them, and then eventually rebuild those neural pathways. Neural pathways. We smart talk over here. We talk smart over here. We talk over here. Anyway, that's so if you haven't listened to our last episode chit chat where we talk and reflect about our week in New Zealand, doing this debrief, check it out because there's a lot of stuff that may come up in this episode, reflecting back, but also it's really good to just have a bit of a more in-depth summary.
And also on our Patreon, we go into even more depth. We go to a more depth
At least this guy can feel like he's in good company with us. He doesn't have to just come listen to the potty.
Check out the Patreon.
Yeah.
We go deeper.
Yeah, do that. Best of luck to this man. Best of luck. Hey guys, just wanted to pop in and take a sec to talk about the extra content you can find over on our Patreon and our Spotify subscription. We have a fun little community growing over there with extra episodes, extra stories. We're also going to have resources, messages back and forth, and also submitting listener stories through that portal as well. So
also outro themes.
If you want to be a part of our closer knit community here at Honey We Need a Chat, please hop on over to Patreon or Spotify subscriptions and join us there. We would love to see you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Moving on. I, 43 male, accidentally insulted my partner, 43 female, and now she has remained cold ever since. And she wears sweats all the time now. I find that so funny because that's in his title.
Yeah, really? That's just the title?
Yeah. She wears sweats all the time.
I'm wearing sweats right now, man.
No, I'm wearing jeans, actually, so I'm better than you.
Yeah. Upper class.
Actually, someone commented on Blair's sweats on the TikTok yesterday or today. Like this TikTok hits harder when you realize he's still wearing his stripper sweats. I think because they're gray sweatpants. Anyway, unless there's something I don't know.
I'm a stripper.
He's seen you before.
Classic.
Anyway, let's go back to the story. We have been a couple for 7 years. I only now realize we both view her very differently. From my perspective, she's never been interested in fashion at all. Always wears black jeans. She has dozens of black tops. She doesn't wear makeup, doesn't get her nails done, only does root touch-ups, and I love her and don't care about this at all.
Why is he naming it then?
It's very specific.
I know.
Also, I'm
I don't even know what root touch-ups are.
Insulted by how accurate the description of me is.
No, it's not.
From her perspective, apparently, she dresses elegantly and minimalistic. She says she is always wearing no makeup. I guess she means mascara, I'm not sure. She says she pays the salon every month to color her hair or it would be grey. Reason this all came up is that we met with friends and one of the women is very fashionable, always done up. I had mentioned in passing to my partner that I loved that she wore vibrant colors. My partner had said she personally isn't a fan of bright colors, and in the past when she's tried to wear them, she doesn't like how it looks. I told her if I was a beautiful woman, I'd wear bright colors for attention, and that's probably why our friend does it. Anyway, this was the gist of the conversation. If my partner was getting upset, I wasn't picking up on it at all. I honestly don't even recall what I was saying that made her mad, but she ended up annoyed with something. I was truly confused, but we ended up in an argument. I told her that based on how she looks, I had no idea she cared about her looks or fashion. She was just getting really angry at me, which tends to make me mad too. So I told her that if she cares that much, to my surprise, that she should present herself better. She insisted I tell her what I meant, and so I told her that she dresses boring and it makes her look old and dumpy. I didn't read the story in its entirety before I read it.
Far out, Brussels sprout.
She insisted I tell her what I meant, and so I told her that she dresses boring and it makes her look old and dumpy. I also told her I don't care at all, but since she appears to, she should try to dress more fashionable. This was 3 weeks ago, and she was very angry with me. Now she's not angry, but she's remained cold, and she now has taken to dressing in sweatpants/sweatshirts. She says she won't be dressing nice around me anymore, but I never thought she was dressed nice in the first place.
Oh, dude.
Obviously, I put my foot in my
Far
mouth and
out.
I've apologized, but she doesn't care. She says she won't forget what I said. I really just want her to drop this. Is this something that needs therapy or just time? I think someone needs therapy. So much about this. But just to point out the insecurity side of it, if you had, which you never would, but if you said this to me,
I choose life.
You choose life. If you said even a fraction of this to me, I can see where it would prick my insecurities. So he obviously is very unaware of what she puts into. If she's saying she's going to the salon,
Yeah.
and she's saying she's wearing no makeup, as a man, he needs to just trust that, because men generally speaking, have no idea.
Men?
Men
Yeah, I
have
have no idea. No, we've had this conversation.
We've had this conversation,
When was it?
yeah.
Yesterday?
Yeah, just recently.
Anyway, recently we had this conversation. You showed me a reel of a lady saying that she would always get comments by guys
That's right.
saying that, oh, you look so natural.
You're so natural and beautiful, yeah.
And she'd had Botox, she'd had her cheeks done, she'd had all this work done.
Was wearing heavy makeup.
And all this sort of stuff. And she's like, guys have zero clue.
She was saying it as a joke.
Yeah, it was a joke. But like, guys have zero clue about what's actually involved with women putting
makeup.
Putting themselves together, whatever. So yeah, I mean, that's the first thing is like, and I don't. I'm not going to claim that I do understand. Like you said to me, what a guy probably needs to do to dress up, whatever, is get changed, trim his beard, or if he's got it, or shave, do his hair.
Yeah, so maybe have a shower and smell nice and wear nice clothes. Yeah. Because we were talking about this in Auckland while we were sitting in Starbucks, people watching, waiting for a friend. And I was just feeling so frumpy because I was in literally the clothes you saw me in my whole week on the stories. I was in my sweatpants and my sweatshirt. And I just was like, man, there was all these posh people walking around. And then I was looking at the men that they were with, these posh women, I should say. And then the men that they were with were they didn't look bad, but my filter for what looks appropriate or put together for a man, I realized in that moment, was so different to my filter for a woman. And we were talking about this, like what it would take for a guy to be like, today I'm going to dress up, is like a 2-minute extra process. For a woman to do that is so much more time, literally an hour kind of thing. And if I was to act like you do in the morning, get ready for my day, I would have a shower, I would pick my clothes, put deodorant on and perfume on, and walk out of our bedroom and be ready. But Amy, that has just had a shower and done those things, doesn't look like even Amy tonight.
This is a different
Amy. That would be frizzy hair. That would be hair in a slicked up, wet, messy bun. That would be Amy that gets told she's tired all day because she doesn't have makeup on, and that's the days that people tell you you're tired because you don't have makeup on. So...
And I put on a hoodie and put on a hat.
Yeah.
That was
and
me
you'll often look
ready.
nice. That it's like, oh, you look nice. So it's just, it is what it is. It's a pain point for me. But in saying all of that, he has no idea.
No.
If she's saying she's got no makeup, and she's saying she goes to the salon, just believe her. Whether she does or not.
Enough said.
So going right back to the beginning, he is unaware of the effort she puts in.
How are you going? Are you triggered right now?
Triggered. Maybe I should try and figure out why I'm so triggered. I know why I'm triggered. He has no idea what she puts into her appearance. He's listed it all, what he thinks it is, and then he's listed what she says it is. So obviously he's clueless, which to me translates that he probably doesn't also encourage her much in that, because he's not very impressed by it, even though he doesn't care at all. So she's probably coming from a perspective of, he doesn't really pay much attention to how I look. And if she is putting effort in, that's even harder, because then it's like, not only am I actually putting effort in, but he's also not even noticing. And then he's commented on their friend who is fashionable. And he said, I like that she wears bright colors, which is the opposite to this girl's style. And that's valid that someone enjoys bright colors. When we got together, I wear black a lot. And you were like, you should try to put some colors into your thing. And that's totally fine. And I have. It was an insecurity that I was wearing black. But it's valid to be like, it's nice, the bright colors. And then he says, if I was a beautiful woman, I would wear bright colors too. That's probably why she does it, which straight away to my brain is like, oh, okay. Because she's a beautiful woman. And so she's wearing bright colors. And that's helping her be a beautiful woman. I don't do that. I'm not a beautiful woman.
Yeah. Don't say it, man.
Just don't even know where to go from
I don't
here.
know either. And some of these are like, they just smack you in the face. You're like, did he just say that?
Yeah.
And then it's like, what do we say about that?
Yeah.
Don't say that.
You're on your own, man.
Yeah, we got nothing for you.
Yeah. We can't even workshop it because it just wouldn't happen. But I guess from like trying to take away the annoyance of the story, there have been things that you haven't understood about how I present myself or how I don't. And so from a male's perspective, how would you try to navigate this situation in a better, more constructive way?
Well, like if I had an issue with how you dress?
Well, if you thought, oh, she doesn't actually put much effort into, he says he doesn't care, but he's also noted these things down. So if you're like, she doesn't seem to like put much effort in, which is not a moral thing.
No, straight away I would say, and again, this has changed, and this is what you've brought to my life, is be curious. You know, like find out, well, what does she do, right? So if she says she does the salon, like, oh, cool. Like, tell me about that. You know, what does that look like? Like, what's that process? You know, all this sort of stuff. It's just start off by being curious. And if through that there's still an issue, I think I don't know, man. Like, yeah, I don't know what to do from that point. I think if you show interest in someone, they kind of want to get better at the thing that you're interested in. You know what I mean? Like, so for example, what interests do you have in me? What interests do you have in me?
Don't put me on the spot like that. No. I have lots of interest in you.
No, so hypothetically, right? So not hypothetically. So when I picked up bass guitar, right, there was an interest for you when I picked that up, and you were curious about what I'm learning, how I'm learning, all this sort of stuff. There was a curiosity there, and that actually inspired me to get better at bass guitar. I'm not great at it still, but maybe because you lost interest in it. No, but there's that element of inspiring me. So I think curiosity is a huge part of that. From there, I don't know, man. I don't have the answer for that, and I think it's situational. But if you're not curious, if you're just accusational, it's the wrong approach to start with.
Yeah. Firstly, I'm very curious, and my husband, I'm super curious about what you do at work, how all those structures and stuff
and that's
work.
what I mean. Like, and that inspires me.
Yeah, and I'm curious about, well, it was more so about Call of Duty.
Yeah, and then you realize they use you as a human shield.
Yeah.
That was so good.
And then you kept giving away our PlayStations and then buying a new one.
Yeah, I was trying to kick a habit.
And then you'd be like generous and just give it all your games and everything. And then
Babe, it was ruining our marriage. I would use you as a human shield.
You started that before even engaged.
Yeah.
But yes,
it worked.
I think your curiosity comment is really key. Wow, I made too many K's in that. But I think it's really key because, and there has been times where I don't remember what the context was. I think it was when you were working out of the house. And I've raised with you, like, you don't ask me much about my day.
Yeah.
And you were like, well, I just kind of know what you're doing. And so, and then I had said to you, well, you don't really know what I'm doing. Like, you know that I'm at home with the kids, but I would ask you all the time about what your day was, how you talked about it. And you've gotten way better at that. But it was kind of like, oh, that just wasn't really a thing that you thought about. It wasn't something that you were curious about. Yeah. You weren't intentionally putting effort, especially at the end of the day when you're tired, into being like, what was Amy's day like? What did she do? Even things that, like, I know that stuff's not interesting to you, especially back then. I was like, maybe going for coffee with someone, probably just at home. Like there wasn't much to talk about, but I would always be having conversations with people and that kind of thing. So I think when and this happens a lot in relationships, you start to just fall into complacency if you're not careful. And so you just become these two people just like spinning in your little orbits, and your lives overlap at home, but they don't necessarily overlap outside of that. And if you're not careful, you just become these two independent orbits just spinning. These little satellites out in the world, and you're together, but not really.
Yeah.
And so especially in this kind of thing where he's like, these are the things she doesn't do. And then she's like, I do go to the salon. He doesn't need to be like, yes, she went to the salon on June 4th at 10 a.m. But just being like, oh, she went to the salon. How was it? Or like, what did you get done? Or even just registering she's going to the salon today. Or if he doesn't even know she's going to the salon today, maybe just say, what did you do today? And having those little bits of curiosity build your togetherness and your interest in each other and tell you a lot more about each other. So then he's not, for one thing, assuming things. And then also, if he is picking up a pattern, like you said, where something's off and he's like, she's not taking much pride in what she looks like, which is not a bad thing, but could be a trigger for maybe something's going on for her, then he knows those things and he can be more delicate.
Yeah. I've got two things. One is, if we went to the Four Horsemen, what would be her response after that? Would that be stonewalling?
I don't know if it's stonewalling because he doesn't say anything about what she said.
Well, it's essentially like where she's now not putting in any effort.
Yeah, now
yeah. So I'm not sure what that is, if that's stonewalling. I can't remember what they were.
Stonewalling would be like shutting down and not talking about it. So who knows what's happened between it happening and this. But yeah, I guess it would kind of fall into defensiveness or stonewalling.
Yeah.
But disconnect, absolutely.
I was like, I really enjoyed that episode. So I like to take these scenarios and be like, oh, which one would this sort of fit under? Because it just gives up a little bit more pattern there as well. The other part too is you're talking about how, asking questions and so forth. And I remember there was a moment where when I said, oh, I already know what you're doing about your day, I think we can get into this rut as well. I'm like, I know everything about you. There's nothing new about you, but we're not looking for these massive, like brand new things. Like we probably won't get that anymore, that brand new thing.
In fact, we don't want that. That would be scary at this stage.
Exactly right. But my point is, like, people sort of romanticize that. And it's like, I don't have that anymore, so I lose this curiosity. But I learn new things about you every single day because your life isn't the same every single day. And then micro new things, you've learned something new, either through a conversation you've had or a reel that you've watched or whatever else. Like, there's always something new to learn. So again, I think and this isn't a shame thing to say, like, oh, guys, you're not being as curious, or ladies, you're not being as curious to your partners. It's not a shame thing. We're not wanting to shame people, but it's a learnt art. You know what I mean? I had to learn that. I really had to put in effort on the way home coming from work about, all right, what questions can I ask? Because it's genuinely, like, otherwise my mind would just be blank because I'm assuming I know what you're doing, and you have to really think about how to be curious. It's quite a fascinating thing. It's not naturally just to be curious for some people, but you can learn it, and it's really, really important to learn it.
Yeah. And the more you can work out, because, there might not be new things happening every day, but there's new things going on in your partner's brain every day and how they are processing and thinking. And
the other part too is, again, having these conversations about what are you trying to grow in? What are you trying to work on? Because that is going to be new every single day as long as the journey goes on. Yeah,
absolutely. I think as well with this, just to wrap it up, I think, the damage is done. She's obviously not okay, and she's not just going to magically be okay and drop it. That's just not going to happen. And if it does, that's not actually a good sign either. That's pushing something away. If I was him, I would just be like, I am really sorry. Obviously, I pricked an insecurity, or I said something that I didn't mean the meaning of. I didn't mean to intend certain things. Didn't realize that stuff was important to you. And I'm sorry that I didn't even know that. So start by being like super humble. You've put your foot in it so many ways, even in writing this Reddit story, man.
You've put your foot in the poop.
Yeah.
It's
poop
all in
everywhere.
there. It's all in there.
But it doesn't have to stay there. You can bring it back. Just do it quickly. Moving on to the next story. 30 female wife is offended because I, 36 male, ignore her during TV show.
This doesn't happen.
Maybe it was 33 female is offended because I, 36 male, ignored her. My wife, 30 female, and I, 36 male, have been together for almost 3 years. This is my second marriage, and it's her first. We're past the honeymoon phase, and we're trying to figure out life together now that the shine has dulled a little bit. I'm so thankful to have her in my life. She's a wonderful partner, and I hate the possibility of hurting her, but even unintentionally. Lately, we've been having the same disagreement over my attention level while we're watching a show. She will make a comment, sometimes about the show, sometimes not. More often than not, I will not hear her. It's not that she's not talking loud enough, because last night she said she was practically yelling at me. I didn't hear any of it. I was way too focused on the episode we were watching.
What was the show, though? Like, that has to be said.
As a bit of background, this is something I have dealt with my entire life. As a kid, I would sit down and read a book. People would talk to me, and I simply wouldn't hear them. They would have to come up real close and yell my name or tap me to get attention. It was a point of contention in my first marriage as well. This only happens when we're watching TV. I try to be quite attentive most of the time, mainly because one of the things that attracted me to her most was that we could talk about anything for hours. I really enjoy talking with her, and it makes me sad that she is trying to talk with me and I am, albeit unintentionally, ignoring her. And I have absolutely no qualms about talking during a show. I do it myself sometimes. I've considered trying to get a referral to see a psychiatrist for an ADHD evaluation, but she thinks that I'm taking it to an extreme and that I should be able to just hear her. Another part of this is that it isn't consistent. In other people's houses with other people, I don't have this issue. I think that it's a comfort thing. My brain has stored up the information about my surroundings at home and shuts down everything apart from the TV. She seems to take it personally that she's the reason. It was particularly frustrating to her when a few months back she mentioned that an actor on the show we were watching was in another one of our shows. I didn't respond, and shortly afterwards I said to her essentially the same thing about the actor.
Are you getting triggered?
Yes. She got a little mad and said, "Are you kidding me? I just said that." I apologized and said I didn't hear her, but I do wonder if she believes me. I want to validate my wife's feelings about not being heard, but I have a hard time separating that from my own feelings. How can I show my wife that I do care about her and want to hear her, but that in that short time in the evening while watching TV, my body does not want to cooperate? This is a very accurate description of our lives.
It's with one of our kids. We're trying to get him help.
One of them does also do this, but I know where he got it.
I relate to this, obviously. I very much relate to this. And I don't know how to explain it. Like, I remember, I think it was this year, I was sitting and watching TV, and all of a sudden I had you and all the kids are staring at me and yelling. I'm like, what? And I'm like, what is going on? And they're like, we've just been yelling your name for such a long time. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I genuinely don't. It's just like you just go tunnel vision. I just go tunnel vision, and I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. And I've heard it's an ADHD thing, and we've been curious about if that's something that I might struggle with. We never got tested or anything, but we've just seen the symptoms of it, and I just tick so many of those boxes. So yeah, I don't know. I can understand how that'd be frustrating. I can understand him. I'm thankful that even though it's frustrating to you, you still see the humor in it. It's because I think you know me. You know I'm not intentionally ignoring you, but I don't think it's a bad thing that he wants to go get tested and to bring answers. I actually applaud that because, again, you and I have spoken about how rare it is for guys to actually get the help that they seek. They'll identify something, but then to do something about it is actually quite rare from what we've seen, not going off any stats or anything. So I actually applaud him for doing that. Just being curious about himself and being like, this is not okay. I don't want to treat her like this. I want to do something about it. I don't know how he could bring it up any better than what he has. I
think I would absolutely, if he feels driven to, I would absolutely be getting tested. I'm intrigued by her apparent reaction to that. And I was thinking it could be, and this is kind of the insecurity for this story, was one, how he might be insecure about what's going on for him. He's not sure what's happening. But also she seems triggered by this. Like which would be annoying, but she seems triggered by it too. So I'm not sure what's happening there. But I did think that some people could look at a diagnosis of something and then be like, oh, cool, that's why I can just ignore you now. And so I'm wondering if her reaction is a little bit like, oh, if he's just trying to blame it on ADHD and he's going to go get a diagnosis, and then it'll be like, I can't hear when I'm watching TV.
Yeah.
And the thing that he pointed out where he can do it around certain people, and like when he's out of the house, which his explanation made a lot of sense to me when he was like, at home everything's normal. I'm not like alert where it would be outside the house, but that would be hurtful for her because you'd be like, you can make it happen for other people. So are you just not putting the effort in to make it happen for me? And I know it seems like a semi-small thing, like it's just while they're watching TV, but it is really frustrating to just not be heard. It's really difficult.
I think is another level to it for you as well, though, because our kids have just started ignoring you, but like actually ignoring you. Yeah. It's not like they can't hear you. They just won't answer you.
Did you hear me talking to them today?
No.
I was in the bathroom cutting one of the oldest one's hair, and I can't remember what I said to him. And I was like, it's like he just didn't hear me. And then, because I kept saying stop, which is fair enough. He was sitting there for a very long time. I was like, don't move. And then he would like clap his hands or something. I was like, don't move. I don't know how else to say, don't move. And he's like, sorry, I just keep forgetting. And I was like, bud, it feels like I'm invisible sometimes, which obviously the 7-year-old doesn't understand this, but genuinely I'm a little bit like, does my voice impact anyone's life? So it is a bit more triggering. And yes, recently, I don't know what their deal is. The 2 oldest ones in particular.
Yeah. Like, all 3 of them, all the 3 older ones. Yeah. I remember our daughter is just lying on the ground and you're trying to talk to her and she's just looking at you and just like flipping her legs around and stuff. And she's just looking at you and you're like, can you hear me? And she's just looking at you. She's not answering at all. But you know what's
so funny though? Because there was at the beginning of our relationship, and you're so much better at this now, I would ask you something and then you just wouldn't respond. But it was because you were looking it up or you were trying to think. And so then I'd be like, I'd ask it again because I thought you didn't hear me. And you'd be like, oh, I'm trying to think. And I'm like, so could you not have told me? I just feel like, I can't remember what it is. Like, is that, I can't remember an example, but something like, is that the person that that you're meeting later? And then you just be quiet. I'd be like, is that the person you're meeting later? I'm just trying to figure it out. But, okay. Like you didn't respond or register. And like I'm just used to people being like, oh yeah, I'll check, or just some sort of registering. So I wonder if they get it from someone.
Well, I don't do it anymore.
You don't do it much anymore.
Said.
No. Yeah. And it is that kind of thing is different. And obviously we've derailed this conversation now. But
again, going back to what you mentioned before, her triggers, and again being curious, and this is where I think they can do together though, is not to move away from her struggle. Like it's good to validate her struggle with the situation, but at the same time, it would be good to explore why it's triggering her so much. Yeah. You get frustrated. You do get frustrated when it happens, but you also see the humor. It's not as much of a trigger for you. You don't take it personally. I think you might have to start with
initially before I understood a bit of what was happening. Yeah, it was like, hello.
Yeah.
Am I here?
Your voice just break. Hello. So yeah, having that curiosity around her situation as well. So again, I think for a lot of these things, it's so easy to look at one person. Yeah. And just because again, this is another big thing that we've been doing even before New Zealand, but New Zealand was that times 10 was a situation comes up, either I've done something or like I have a trigger that affects you, but then what does that mean for you then? So it's not just it's good to identify why that's triggered for me and why I've reacted in that way, but then it's also good to explore how that affects you, and because now that's triggering you. Yeah. And that's a really hard but good exercise to do, and just unpack that and to have that culture of curiosity, figuring that out, going deep.
One thing that really stood out to me when we were doing the process in New Zealand was they explained this. I don't remember what the drawing was called, but basically it's the cycle of hurt. So an injustice is done to one person, intentionally, unintentionally, or it's just perceived as injustice from the victim. And then there's this reaction that often happens if it's not dealt with, where injustice is done in response. So backwards. So either you then lash out and cause injustice or hurt or pain to the person that's just hurt you, or you kind of put it onto someone else. Like you're triggered and you're frustrated and hurt, and so you snap. That happens a lot with my kids. If I'm stressed by something that is not related to them at all, and they're around me when I'm like reading the text or I'm on the phone or I'm like thinking about it, whatever it is, I often find myself really snappy at them, which is not fair. And it really bothers me that I do that. And I'm trying to work on it, but that's a good example of you're hurt, so then you hurt. You hear that phrase all the time, hurt people, hurt people. And so one thing that we pointed out while we were talking and debriefing with them was some of the stuff that we're navigating and working on healing from, we're hurt by that thing. And so then we put up boundaries or we put up reactions or whatever it might be. And sometimes that can include things like stonewalling. So that was one example we had, was like, we're hurt, then we're just not responding because we're too hurt and triggered to deal with it. And then that actually can look like a hurt to the other person. So that the initial person may or may not have meant to hurt. They've hurt you. And then if you're like stonewalling or you're reacting out of that, you could look like, especially if they didn't realize that they hurt you in the first place, it could look like you're just hurting them out of the blue. They're like, what's going on? But really it's a reaction. So it's just this cycle, and it's more complicated the way I explain it. But so when you're looking at relationships that navigate hurt, and a lot of the stories we read, almost all of them, have some form of hurt that's been done, it's really easy, like you said, to just look at one side. But the reality is most relationships end up in places because of this kind of cycle of hurt, and you haven't broken it. Like you haven't dealt with that pain and that hurt and the loss in that instance. So it's just gone back and back. And it's like a ping pong. It's like this circle that just goes round and round. And it's too complicated to pick who's at fault. And it's not helpful to pick who's at fault. So I think, yeah, it's a really important thing when you are navigating something, especially when there's insecurity that may mean that a reaction or the way you take something in isn't even logical externally. Really important to look at how you've reacted, how the other person's reacted, what might be playing into it for both sides, so that you've got a big picture of it all and you can navigate. I feel like that will help you navigate, and it's helped us navigate a lot better than if it's just, Blair, you've been doing this thing and it's hurt me, so fix it. Like there's so much that goes into disagreements and hurts that make it so much more complex. So I think with this one, I don't know. I think if this was us and it was just like, okay, it's super specific, TV time, you don't respond to me, and I know it seems small, but it's just really hurting me, I think we'd put something in place. So either, like, I don't know, because my brain doesn't work this way. In my head, I'm like, could he just be like, okay, TV time, pay attention, like almost pay more attention to her than the TV intentionally? Like, would that help? Have you had times where
I still struggle if there's something on as well. It doesn't matter if it's you or not. If there's something else on, I'm distracted.
Yeah.
So I love you.
Do you?
I don't like questions when I'm trying to listen to a song.
To a song?
Yeah. So where did we just drive? Oh, yeah, New Zealand. So when we be listening to a song or something, and it's like, oh, yes, I'm feeling the song, like it's my groove, like it's a really cool song. And then you start talking to me, I'm like, I can't do both. This is my jam, man. This is my jam. And I have to break that, and I listen to you. So I actually turn it down. I don't know if you notice. Every time I turn it down, it's because you're talking. And I can't do both. I can't listen to me, have music on, and you talk at the same time, so I have to turn it down.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a little bit, me turning it down is like it breaks my concentration from the song to you.
Yeah.
And same with the TV. I can't, if the TV's on, it is very hard for my attention to be on you. And it's not a matter of priority. It's just more, I can't multitask. Like, especially if there's a specific scene that's about to happen, and I'm like, oh, what's going to happen? And you start talking. It's real wrestle for my brain to switch across. It's like an actual block there to go across. It's not oh yeah, you're talking now, you've got my full attention. It's really hard for me to do that.
So fascinating.
So I have to in some way, sometimes I slap my leg. I would as well. I don't know if you noticed that. No. So I'm watching TV and I can tell that you're talking and I have no idea what you're saying. So I'll kind of just like this, and I'll just brush my leg, and then that's me turning, and then I'll look at you and it's like, hey, cool. It's got my attention from that to you.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Good self. I was going to say self-slapping. Well, good fix that you found.
It's not great because I keep getting turned back to it, but it's just like I've noticed that if I can do an action, it helps break that focus.
Do you remember when you started doing the slapping thing or anything like that?
I think when we noticed that I was zoned out,
didn't do
I
it
just
as a kid or anything.
no, that was
So
been
interesting.
more recently.
Yeah. So funny though, because when I'm watching something, I'm almost never fully like. I'm fully like the room is there, the people are there.
So that's why I struggle to hear things, and because I have struggled with hearing, and this is why I don't fully know if it's my hearing. If there's a lot of noise going on, I can't focus my attention, and this is so I got my ears tested when I was a kid, and because I had troubles hearing, and then I got my ears tested, and their actual diagnosis was more that I struggled to pay attention. It's not my hearing, because I got my tested, I heard everything, and I didn't miss a beat.
Interesting.
It was so isolated. The hearing was like the test was so isolated. If I've got a lot of noise around me, I just can't focus on what's being said. Yeah. So a lot of times I'll be like, huh, what? Like, but or I have a weird look. I feel like I've got a weird look on my face a lot of the times when I'm in group settings because I have no clue what people are saying.
Yeah. You kind of just look stoned in the corner.
That was affecting it too.
Sometimes I just come up to you and you're like,
yeah.
Do you just give up or something? Like, or do you just like, do you sit there?
No, I think I'm trying. I'm trying to focus and figure out what people are talking about. And then I just come out with
in a really inappropriate time.
Yeah.
That makes me sad for you, baby.
But it is what it is.
It is what it is. But I think, I was just thinking when you were talking, one thing we could do, because I've also started turning the music down if I need to talk, because I need you to hear me. So one thing I think we could do if we were in this situation is I could pause it if I had a comment to make.
If you touch me, it would break my attention.
Yeah.
So it's very much a touch. And if you touch me, it's more helpful. Like if you just put your hand on me or something and start talking and like gave it a little squeeze or whatever, that would help me break my attention
We've
from
learned
it.
something tonight, guys. And I think that would be helpful for them too. If they could find, if he's genuinely like, it's not an intentional thing. And I think whatever is going on for her, she's got to process that. Then if they can come to an agreement that will help him hear her, but also help her understand, he's not just going to like,
and help him understand her.
Yeah. And understanding each other. Like, I know everybody's got different opinions on getting diagnosed. We haven't done anything for you just because we don't have the time or the money.
Apparently it's like a huge
long thing. Yeah, it's really complicated, which is kind of sad, but it's also a complicated test, I think. So,
and I'm not good at tests.
Which was probably they don't have a hard one for ADHD. They probably made it work for people with it. Or maybe that's how they figure out you've got it. But anyway, I think if we needed you to, and we would do it with our kids if we needed, if we were like, okay, no, we're at the stage where we really need some kind of external support with this, then we would do that. And we've definitely, within our kids, I think we're seeing some of them might have similar things, which is beautiful. I genuinely mean that. I think it's a really beautiful thing to understand. And I think for them, it could be just a matter of, it seems like they function really well every other way. So it could be just a matter of finding something that works like that, her putting her hand on his knee or something like that. But if he's really feeling distressed by it or it's causing more issues, then I think having a really honest conversation with her about like, I'm genuinely thinking that I've got something that's affecting my attention. And so I actually really would like to look into it, and just being very honest with her about that process. I'm sure with time she would be able to kind of understand that if she's willing to be curious and supportive of her partner, then I'm sure that would be something they can work through. Yeah.
It's a good one.
Cool. Good one and applicable.
Give me the iPad.
Let's outro this guy.
And just like that, we've unpacked another layer of our complex selves. Today's chat on Insecurities has hopefully shed some light on those shadowy doubts that can sneak into the best of us. Remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about being honest and gentle with ourselves and each other. Take what we've discussed, embrace your vulnerabilities, and turn them into strengths. Thanks for joining us on Honey, We Need to Chat. Until next time, keep supporting each other, keep loving deeply, and remember, we're all perfectly imperfect.
Can't even laugh at that one.
That's solid.
Good job, ChatGPT. Thanks, guys.
Good chat.
See ya.